Can I call now on Dr. Bob Gill?
Thank you. So, thanks for inviting me. I'm a GP, and about 4 years ago, things were getting so bad in my local area, which is in Sidcup, just southeast London. We'd already had the downgrading of one local hospital. We lost an A&E, we lost a maternity, and then there were threats to another hospital, Lewisham Hospital. And I'd already seen the deterioration in services, and I thought, how can any government who's looking after the interests of the public justify closing another hospital? So I started a journey of educating myself and finding out what was going on in the NHS, because what we're hearing on the news is a joke. We are immersed in a series of very complex and well-designed lies to hide what's going on, because key to the destruction of the NHS is to keep the public in the dark for as long as possible. Yeah. I want to give you an example of a patient of mine. So I've been driven to speak out because I'm seeing my patients die unnecessarily, and I'm seeing them harmed unnecessarily. I've kept a spreadsheet and I've given up because the number of people on there is getting depressing. But I'll tell you about one lady, 80-year-old lady, significant weight loss, bowel habit had altered. Now that should be ringing alarm bells. I did a blood test on her. I found her hemoglobin, her blood count, was half what it should be. I referred her urgently. There was no bed to admit her because she needed to be an inpatient to get the investigations done. She was sent home. She collapsed at home, went into A&E. There was no bed. They sent her home again. She collapsed again at home, went back to A&E. She needed a transfusion, but she was sent home after having an iron injection, which would do absolutely nothing. And then on the third occasion, she fell, perforated her bowel, back into hospital, peritonitis, septicemia, death. Okay? Now that's within the last few months. What I've also discovered is there is a climate of fear amongst staff to speak out. And there's also, which has surprised me, a reluctance for patients to speak out. I thought the more tragedies that appeared, people would be jumping up and down. But what happens is that when you suffer, you become powerless. You become afraid. You don't want your future care to be jeopardized. And one of the strongest people I knew in my practice, who was the chair of my patient participation group, once she became ill and she'd been subjected to very poor treatment, she became timid like a mouse and wouldn't even let me speak up on her behalf. So there's a huge problem in terms of lack of exposure. The serious damage that's going on has been recently reported. Humanitarian crisis is not an overstatement. So why are we in this situation? Well, it's been set up, this stage of the privatization. You have to start showing the NHS failing. And we're seeing this daily. NHS is failing left, right and centre. This is by design. Our government has set up the NHS to constantly fail, so we all lose faith, and then when they suggest a solution, we'll grab it because it's offering hope. How has it been set up to fail? Well, we've heard how private finance initiative and the marketisation of the NHS is hemorrhaging money away from delivering care. So estimates of up to a third of your tax money that should go on delivering care is already being diverted away. So the other thing that's happened, since 2010, the growth in the NHS budget historically has been 4% a year. So for the last 6-7 years, it's been less than 1%. Okay? And we've lost a further 7,000 beds, right? So if you have a problem of bed capacity, if there's not enough beds, most of us would say we need more beds. The government solution? Cut beds. Okay? Now, the lies are so big and so constantly repeated that they become absorbed by diffusion and people start to accept them as true. Because to realize that you're being told such massive lies by your own government and by the BBC, you start to question your own judgment. You say, there must be some truth in this, surely. Why would they do this to us? But that's what's going on. And if you don't believe me, just remind yourself of weapons of mass destruction and remind yourself of the Hillsborough tragedy, how long it took for the truth to come out. So, where are we? We need to set up scapegoats. And top of the list of scapegoats is immigrants and health tourists. But in the 60, 70 year of the NHS, the proportion of cost of health tourism has not changed. It's about 0.3%. It's tiny. Are you trying to persuade me that you're going to set up a charging infrastructure in every hospital across the country to recoup 0.3%? Seriously? And we're ignoring the rising cost of PFI, we're ignoring the rising cost of the market, and we haven't even touched on the medico-legal cost. There's something like 30 billion being put aside for future liability of medical negligence. Medical negligence largely caused by the privatization. It is perverse. So we've set up the scapegoats, health tourists. The media are doing their job by outlining the problem, describing the problem, not getting to the root cause, but coming up with the wrong solutions. If they were doctors, they'd all be struck off. They'd be killing all the patients. If I came up with the right diagnosis every time and gave you the wrong treatment, you would not be impressed. That's what our media are doing. So coming to Simon Stevens. Simon Stevens is a British guy who helped the Labour Party develop their policies in the early 2000s. He then went on to spend 10 years as a president in United Health. United Health. Has anybody in this room heard of United Health? Right. Everybody needs to look into United Health because they're going to be the insurance company taking over your health service. This is where it's going. He spent 10 years as a president of United Health Global. Now, what do you think the job of a global division of any corporation is? To expand overseas markets. He was appointed head of the NHS in 2014, welcomed by Labour as well as the Tory government. The other thing to note, this is a cross-party joint enterprise. Okay? And he has come up with this 5-year forward view, and the 5-year forward view, a part of that is this STP. STP. The purpose of STP is to close down more hospitals, particularly non-profitable care like casualty and intensive care and emergency medicine, hive off all the profitable activity like cold surgery, hip replacement, cataracts, into fewer units, right, ready for corporate transfer. So dump the unprofitable stuff and collect together all the profitable work. That's one job. The second job is to dismantle completely general practice. So by design, the funding to my surgery has gone down 20% in the last 3 years. You can extend that to most surgeries. They are putting so many bureaucratic obstacles in our way and squeezing funding that most surgeries will have to merge or close. There won't be many GPs with experience or organisational memory of what the NHS used to be like. Gone will be your relationship with the GP. You won't see the same person twice. And another part of what will happen is de-skilling. Now, the junior doctor contract was essential to smash the terms and conditions of junior doctors, so you cut the cost of employing them and you make it easier to get rid of them. In fact, you force them out. De-skilling. And we hear the word integration. Integration sounds great. But what they're trying to integrate is the social services budget with the health budget, get them together, hand it over to the private sector. But the social services is means tested. Social services is struggling. Means testing allows another route for the introduction of patient charges. So we've talked about a charging infrastructure on the excuse of charging health tourists. Merging these budgets will be another avenue. So you can see what we'll be left with is skid row services for most people. If you're seriously ill, you may die in transit, yeah? If you're lucky, you'll get to the hospital, but your outcome will be worse because you're sicker when you get there. You have a culture of fear within the NHS, so the people who know your care is atrocious have absolutely no incentive to speak up because they will lose their job. And in order to maintain some semblance of decent cover, you will have to take out top-up insurance. Job done. If you've been keeping your eyes open, you will notice Bupa, Nuffield, Virgin Vitality are blanket advertising on TV, on the internet, in every free newspaper, pink Virgin Vitality. Why are they spending their money on advertising? Because they know there's a market being developed. You cannot persuade people to abandon the NHS if it's running well. You have to make it fail. You have to restrict the services, and then you say top up insurance or lump it. And that's where we're going. So, sorry to be so depressing, but you have a responsibility to yourself. You're paying taxes, you've paid taxes, you've got family, we all need the NHS. It's being screwed over and you are being bled dry. Even when you have insurance, insurance is profit driven. They make their profit by denying care. That's how it works. If you're seriously ill and expensive, they'll return your premium and say good luck to you. That's how it works. That's how the American system works. So we have to raise awareness, tell your family, tell your friends, find out about it. There are some books here if you want to come up after and I'll show you. But ignorance is their major tool and we have to break the ignorance. Thank you.